The Italian Wars. It's a beautiful day in France. The sun is shining, the birds are singing, the bees are buzzing, and hey, guess what? I'm going to invade Italy. And so he did. This man is Charles VIII, and he was the ruler of France in the late 1400s. During a stable period of time in France, he decided to attack Italy because one of his courtiers, Etienne de Vesque, convinced him it was a good idea. To do this, he had to pay off the other powers in Europe first, so that they wouldn't get mad at him. Hey, Henry the Seventh, Ferdinand the Second, and Maximilian the First. I'm going to invade Italy, so here's some goodies so that you wouldn't get mad at me. Henry, you can have this large pile of money. Ferdinand, you can have this chunk of land near the Pyrenees. And Maximilian, you can have the territories of Artois and Franche-Comté, strategically important pieces of land that are critical to the defense of France that I definitely won't need. Now it's time to start my glorious conquest of Italy that definitely won't lead to a bloody series of wars lasting over half a century, costing France vast amounts of money and soldiers, and getting me nothing but a small mention in the footnotes of the history textbooks. Charles started his war by entering Italy in 1494 through Piedmont, a small region in northwest Italy that borders France. From there, his armies marched southwards towards Pisa, and then Florence, and then Rome. By February of 1495, Charles's armies were able to enter Naples without any fighting. However, from there, things only started to spiral downward. By March 1495, the Papal States, Milan, Venice, and good old Maximilian I and Ferdinand II had banded together to form the Holy League, an alliance whose main purpose was to drive Charles VIII out of Italy. You may be wondering why Maximilian I and Ferdinand II turned their backs on Charles when he had already paid them off. The answer is pretty simple. Monarchs during that time period didn't have any honor at all. In fact, Ferdinand II once said, quote, "The King of France complains that I have just twice deceived him. He lies, the fool. I have deceived him 10 times and more," about Louis XII, Charles's successor. When Charles saw their forces, he decided that now was the best time for a strategic retreat. However, before he could get back to France, he had to engage the Holy League at the Battle of Fornovo. The entire Battle of Fornovo lasted about 15 minutes, and Charles barely managed to get back to France with his armies in one piece. The King of Naples, whose name also happened to be Ferdinand II, regained control, and Charles's entire conquest ended in disaster. More importantly, all of the other monarchs in Europe now disliked Charles, as they viewed him as an unstable ruler who was likely to invade them at any time. Hey, that was a great invasion that I just performed. With just one more, I'm sure I could take Italy without being skewered by the King of Naples. Oh no! I just hit my head on a doorframe while planning another attack upon Italy and died. After the death of Charles VIII on April of 1498, a period called the First Italian War ended, and a new king, Louis XII, ascended to the throne. Louis took about a year to consolidate his power. After this, he decided to repeat Charles's conquest and attacked Italy in 1499. He managed to take Milan, Genoa, and Naples, but then Ferdinand V of Spain drove him out of Naples by 1503. He was then driven out of Milan and back to France by the Second Holy League, reformed by Pope Julius II. This repetition of war over Italy between the countries of Europe, mainly France and Spain, followed by short but stable periods of peace, followed by war, followed by more peace, was what plagued Europe for approximately the next half a century. The wars involved famous monarchs such as Charles V, King of Spain and Holy Roman Emperor, Pope Clement VII of Italy, Francis I, King of France, and Henry VIII, King of England. These kings all fought for control of Italy for their respective kingdoms. Control of Italy was usually held by one faction for a short period of time and then transferred to the next, and so on, like what happened during the First Italian Wars. This continued on until April 3rd, 1559, when an agreement, called the Peace of Cato Cambrisis, was signed, which resulted in the end of the 65-year-long Italian War between France and Spain. As a result of this treaty, Spain received more control over Italy for the next century and a half. King Henry II of France gave up Piedmont and Savoy to Emmanuel Philibert, an ally to Spain. He also gave back Corsica to Genoa and gave up his claims to Milan. However, France did get to keep 5 fortresses, 3 bishoprics, and the territory of Calais, areas of land that it captured from Spain and its allies during the wars. France signed the treaty because of 3 reasons: losses at battles during the ending of the wars, an internal religious conflict between the Huguenots and the Roman Catholics, and heavy financial losses sustained during the war.